I'm going to show you how to sculpt a clay word. I'm going to show you how to sculpt that letter F. Mine is a little bit complicated because I'm doing some branches on it, but yours could also just be a little bit simpler with just straight pieces for the F. So first I'm just rolling this clay into a ball and then kind of flattening it out. So it's about the thickness of a finger. I don't want to make it any thinner than that because then it won't be able to stand up. Now mine for the F needs to have flat sides. So I'm tapping them on the table and then kind of squeezing those edges so that they are the same, like equal thickness again of that finger. So tapping the edges to make it into a cube and then squeezing them so they're not thick like that. So they're a little bit thinner, more equal thickness. Now I want to turn this cube into that F. So I'm going to just kind of sketch on the parts that I'm going to cut out. You don't want anything to be too thin so that it would break off. And I'm going to cut out those parts with the X on it. I can either use a knife like I'm doing here, or like I was in that last little clip, the spear side of a cleanup tool. Just something sharp and flat. I'm just going to go through section by section and take pieces out of this. So however big or small that needs to be to make this so that I can get these pieces out without breaking the parts that I need to stay. Here you can see that I ripped kind of the middle section of my F. So I'm going to take a flat tool, like a firm flat tool, and kind of smooth that back in to kind of get that clay pressed back together. Now I'm going to go through and try to keep cutting out some of these pieces. And as I'm doing this, I'm just trying to be careful with that little middle piece so I don't rip it too much like I did before. So again, just cutting out those sections that I don't need. If I'm doing a curve, I like to use a needle tool and cut that off. You can see me here using like the spear end of a cleanup tool or a needle tool. So my F is pretty much made. It's just pretty rough looking. Lots of little crumbs and sharp edges. So I'm going to smooth in all that with a paintbrush, some water, and my finger. So I'm spraying a little bit of like a pool of water on the table. And I'm just going to dip that paintbrush in it so it's wet. And then start going around my edges and any cracks, rough bits, little crumbs. I'm trying to kind of smooth those back into the clay. You can see that as I start to use that paintbrush, it sort of heals that clay back into itself. And then some areas still has kind of some rough spots, and I'll show you what to do with that in a minute. So sometimes I'll use something firmer. I'm going to use the back of the cleanup tool, like the edge of the curve, to try to do that, to get any of these spots that maybe won't be smoothed very well. I could also use a plastic modeling tool. So there's that plastic modeling tool, kind of going through and getting some of those bigger rough edges and kind of getting them all smoothed in so there aren't a lot of like weird cracks and crumbs. And then I'll go back through with that paintbrush again and kind of try to smooth some more of that out. Now, if I'm trying to do this with a paintbrush and it isn't really working, I can also use my finger, just a little bit of water, and that'll work really well just right along those edges and anywhere else that has like kind of big creases. I'm just pressing firmly to smooth all that out. So that is looking pretty good. Now I'm going to see if it stands up. And it does not. I could cut off the bottom to try to make it flat, or I can tap it on the table and kind of set it and move it back and forth until it has like a flat edge to sit on. So now this bottom is pretty flat and it'll stand by itself. And then the last thing I'm going to do is go through and add texture. So remember that your letter needs to have texture and some details. And I'm going to make mine because my word is fall. And so
like the season. So I'm making this look like a tree. So I'm going through and adding some like tree bark texture. And as you can see, I'm adding that texture to all of the sides, not just the front, but the back and the sides, everywhere, so that when I look at the word, I can look at it from all different angles and it will have texture on it. So there it is, kind of like a branch. The last thing that I'm going to do is add a few little leaves. So I'm just sculpting these out of clay, rolling them, pressing them, kind of pinching them into a leaf shape, adding some little details with my cleanup tool to have them some like leaf texture. And then I'm going to place them where I want them, and then eventually score and slip them on. Remember, you want to have 4 or more details added to be able to get a 4. So these leaves would count as 1 detail. So I'm scoring and then adding some slip, pressing firmly, and then going through those edges and smoothing them in so that they are really well sealed together. So the leaf is like sealed into the letter. Cleaning up anything that I might have messed up as I attach those, adding in any extra texture that I might have taken away. And there it is.